I feel like this topic is incredibly important. And I feel like a lot of especially the Thursday night crowds, a lot of people who've been with the Lord for a long time, a lot of people know this topic. And it's kind of Christianity 101. But I know that I was in the faith for 20-some years, and I don't know if it wasn't taught to me, or maybe I just didn't catch it, or wasn't around like-minded people. I don't know. I feel like I didn't really grasp it. Well, I'm still grasping it. I didn't really start to really get any hold of it until I was in my late 20s, mid-20s. And the more I feel I press into this topic, I feel the Lord meets me there, and I get deeper in His presence. Yes, the topic is Christmas presents, not presents, right? His presence. I mean, that's the whole Bible is all about His presence. We hear in Genesis, He's walking in the garden. That's His presence. And we see the point of the tabernacle was for His presence to dwell. The point of the temple was for His presence to dwell. The point of, at the end in Revelation, He says, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. And of course, the Christmas season is His presence. Bring forth a son and call him Jesus, for he shall save their sins. But He also says in Isaiah, the parallel verse to Matthew 1:21, Isaiah 7:14, behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is God with us. Now, a long, long time ago, I was working with a ministry, and I met this guy named Eric Gilmore, and I feel like the Lord has placed a couple people in my life that have been able to show me something or present something or just help me get closer to God. Of course, Pastor Jim is one of them. Before I met Pastor Jim, I met this guy, Eric Gilmore, and he showed me something. He said, come on to this. He didn't call it a Bible study. It wasn't necessarily waiting on the Lord. It wasn't necessarily adoration. It wasn't necessarily worship. It was just come with me to this meeting. And so it was just a handful of us in this little church chapel, and it was mind-blowing. It was this concept of seeking God, just being there for God, just really finding His presence, seeking His presence. And it was something I feel I don't really think I ever really heard before, because it kind of felt weird at first, and it was kind of odd, and I don't know if I wasn't taught it. I feel like I never caught it. I never really moved in it. And from those meetings, I still think back. I'm like, man, there's only a couple people here, 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 at the most. I'm like, we're in His presence. Why are there not more people here? Who wouldn't want to be in His presence? Who wouldn't want to learn this? Because I don't feel I was taught this. And so it just set me on fire. And I've learned that the Lord has blessed His ministry, and now he's one of the guys people go to for this globally. And the Lord has blessed this, because I feel like it's something that, it's not that it wasn't taught. I just say that a lot of people maybe didn't catch it if it was taught. And so I was one of those people. And there's something about God's presence that, let me start with this. God's presence has a lot of different characteristics. We know that no matter what, God's presence is near us. Psalm 139 says He is behind and before us. Psalm 16 says He's continually before me. He's at my right hand. Jeremiah 23, God talks about being near and not a God that's far off. And He says, can a man even hide himself that I don't see him? He's always there. He's always seeing you. And of course, Deuteronomy and Joshua, we hear the wonderful verses, I will never leave you or forsake you. And so we know this concept that God is near us. That is true. And His presence is near us. And we also know that His presence is in us. So we see in 1 Corinthians 3 that the Spirit of God dwells in us. And we also know that He is also everywhere. We see in Psalm 139 later, where shall I go from your Spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost, you get where I'm going with this? No matter where I go, you're there. And then Numbers 14 says, the whole earth is filled with His glory. And His glory is attached to Him. It's His presence, so you can see Him in everywhere. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about a specific type of His presence. And also how we can be present. And so this sermon, like I said, a lot of things were kind of done differently about this. We just did a little bit of worship and communion in the beginning, and then we're going to do actually the bulk of the worship at the end, because I really want us to practice what's going to be taught. And so the first verse that runs to my mind when I think of presence is Luke 10, and Luke 10, 39 through 41. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work all by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." And so in this busy Christmas season, to slow down and enjoy his presence, truly enjoy it in this different way, is important, because we're celebrating that Jesus came to earth. We're celebrating that God is with us, but then we get busy with all these things. I'm talking about, though God is always present, the at his feet presence, the taste and see verses in Psalms that we don't quite understand, taste his presence, the leaning on Jesus' chest, as John 13 says, the deep calling to deep presence, as Psalm 42. The presence that we know him and he knows us, Matthew 25. And even the stuff that's kind of weird to talk about in church, the Song of Solomon presence, the one where we can sit with him and delight with him and in him. This is the personal, the real, the intimate, the deep, two-way presence that I feel gets lost when we get busy. I feel it gets lost when we get religious. It gets lost whenever there's any opportunity to lose it. Because this presence is a little bit different. We see Ananias, Isaiah, Moses, Jacob, Samuel, Abraham, and probably more say things like, "Here I am, Lord. Your servant is listening," or "Send me." But the "Here I am, Lord," that's the presence I want. The "Here I am." And yes, you can absolutely stop what you're doing in the middle of the day. "Here I am." And yes, you can be in the car and say, "Here I am." And yes, all that is good. But guess what? You're in church today. So you get to practice that here without any distractions, without having to drive as well, without having the clangs and tings of things around you and things on your phone and buzzings and calls. And so I felt, my wife and I were talking about this. I don't know what you could ever really give to God, because you can't really give him anything. I was like, well, maybe sort of you could think that having a child is kind of like giving to him. Sort of, because you're sort of giving a new life. But I think the only thing I could really maybe give to him is my life. And what better way to give him my life than to spend time with him? The "Here I am" presence. When I'm giving all these other people presents, I need to give him my presence. And we know he's already given us his presence. And as we give him our presence, our real, intimate, "Here I am" presence, we also see his "I am" presence. Before we jump into it, I'm going to give you a list of things that helps me. There is no exhaustive list. These are just a handful of things that I was able to coerce our niece and nephew to help with my beautiful wife write. Big enough so you can see, hopefully. Because I was looking and reading and praying and saying, man, if someone could just give me some help to get in his presence. And I feel like these things help me. You don't need all these things, but they might help you. Marie, did you want to be Vanna White? This is my beautiful bride. Oh, and maybe my son. No, well, hey, whatever, however you want to do it. All right. So if you want to grab confess on the bottom. Some things, like I said, that help. If there is sin in our life, if there's something the Lord is showing to us, is making aware to us, is making us known. Sometimes the Lord wants us to get those things right first. It even says if you have a gift on the altar to make things right with your brother. There's different verses that talk about the power of confession and how it breaks things and allows us to get closer to the Lord. Make right. If you know there is something in your life that you can make right, go ahead and do that. Get things in order. You want to make sure things are taken care of. For this particular type of here I am presence, you don't want things to be popping up to your attention if you can help. And they will. I guarantee you, if they can, they will distract you. That's why people pray so much in the morning and things like that. Fellowship. You could also throw communion, going to church, all these things. Getting with believers, especially like-minded believers, that really love and are trying to understand the presence. Then that communion is a good part of it. Fasting. Fasting is very powerful. There are many reasons to fast, many purposes of fasting. This type of fasting is just allowing our flesh man to get weaker so our spirit man gets stronger. And I believe in my life I have seen that. We're not necessarily fasting, we're not trying to coerce God into doing something. We're trying to make sure we align in what God is doing. Pray. That's a big one. In fact, most people, when they talk about being in His presence, it's at a prayer meeting. Praying is incredibly important. All types of praying. Every type that you know, even some you don't. Praying is absolutely powerful. Reading the Word. The Word was God, the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So easy to get close to the Lord. It's easier if you know the Word, if you're in His Word, because His Word is Him. Thankful. These are some attitudes. It says in Psalms, enter His gates with thanksgiving. Give thanks and bless His name. So we enter His gates through thanksgiving. Be humble. In Isaiah 57, it says that He dwells in a high and lofty place, but also with the contrite and lowly of heart. And then we've got some fun ones over here. We've got praise and dance and music. And you could say adoration, worshiping, all these different actions of glorifying Him. It says in Psalm 22, you are holy, you who inhabit the praises of Israel. Psalm 100 again, serve the Lord with gladness. Come into His presence with singing. And so we see that these are just some things that could help. One of the things is getting alone. We see several times where Jesus talks about getting alone. Matthew 14, after He had dismissed the crowds, He went up on a mountain and by Himself to pray. And when evening came, He was there alone. Luke 5, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Mark 1, and rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, He departed and went out to a desolate place, and there He prayed. And if you can't get alone physically, you can get alone in your mind. So Matthew 6:6 says, but when you pray, go into a secret room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And so you will see many traditional Orthodox Jews and people of that manner. I might be doing this not perfectly, but the concept was they would take the prayer shawl, they would drape it over the head. Sometimes they'd even cover completely so they could be removed from the sight. They could be alone while in crowds. You go to the Wailing Wall, you see that. There's many uses of the talit, of the prayer shawl. And one of the uses is this, putting it over and getting alone in your prayer closet. So when Matthew 6:6 was read to the people, they were probably thinking this, get alone. It's the same concept as when you're a kid. Sometimes the church will say, bow your head, close your eyes, cross your hands. It's this idea of getting into your prayer closet and being still. Be still and know that he is God. And so, like I said, we remove the distractions. If you can put your phone on mute, I doubt someone's going to call you, but things like that to do, because we are going to attempt this very soon. And then we see silence. This is one that we're going to exercise today as well. Ecclesiastes says there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. We're going to get into a time to be silent soon. Psalm 62:5 says, my soul waits in silence for God alone. Zephaniah 1, stand in silence in the presence of the sovereign Lord. And a lot of this just comes to this idea of being open and willing for whatever. And then we see why we're going to do it soon. Is we got to practice. Some people have been doing it and it comes incredibly naturally. Some people it takes more time. I don't want to say for some people it's not for them, because if you press in, I believe you will see it. But you got to practice. It's like any other muscle, like any other faith, any other gift. Yes, God does it through us. It's his strength. But we have to practice submitting ourselves to these things. It's Psalm 37. Be silent in the Lord's presence and wait patiently for him. Psalm 40 verse 1. I waited patiently upon the Lord. And this patience too, when you feel it, when you feel his presence, when you're there, stay there. And be patient. That's why sometimes I used to watch pastors and preachers and worship leaders, and they would stop in the middle of it. Come on. But they probably felt something. They wanted to stay there. And that's important. And not everyone feels it. Not everyone does. So some people who don't fit, they don't. But that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're waiting on the Lord. They feel something, they grabbed onto something, or they're waiting for something, and they stay there because his presence is so sweet. We don't want to leave. If God is speaking to us and being with us in that way, we want to stay. As I mentioned, these things help, and so we're going to do them now. The sermon is a little bit shorter today because we're going to do some worship songs after. When we start to do this, it might feel silly. It might feel weird. That's okay. If you haven't done something for God that feels a little silly, weird, out of your comfort zone, do something weird, because it shows that you're growing and you're trying. Maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. But you know what? You tried. And you're open to it. You're saying, you know what, Lord, if this is a thing that's all through Scripture, that's connected, that there's different types of your presence, and I feel like I want that, then go for it. I can't tell you how many times that's how I got deeper with Lord. They are doing that. Can I do that too? They love you like this. They're reading this book. How can I get that? Because that's how we are to act for the unbelievers and those Jews who still don't believe in the Messiah. They're supposed to look at us and have a hunger and desire for what we have. Not necessarily material goods, but that they desire what we have. We're supposed to move in a way that people desire. And let me tell you, I see people who really get this concept. I desire that. I feel like maybe I'm naturally an evangelist, I guess. So the whole talking about love and his presence, that's not natural to me, but I see the people who do it, and I see the power behind it, and I see that they're on some sort of, I don't want to say some other level, because we all have our own specialties and our strengths, but they're in a place that I really desire something like that as well. And I think it is absolutely for all of us, because as much as I can say all these things, and you might be thinking, we're using some of these to disqualify you, don't do that, because in Psalms 145, and other places in Scripture, the only thing that we really need is a desire. Psalm 145, the Lord is near to all who call upon him. To all who call upon him in truth. Who? All. Jeremiah 29:13, you will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with your whole heart. So don't let any of that stop you. If any of those things help you, I do encourage that you would seek into those things. What we're going to do, I'm going to just express it because sometimes the YouTube and the online mutes the audio because we're going to be playing some worship songs. And I want everyone who does this, I genuinely think it would be great. Maybe you've done this all the time. Maybe you did this morning. Maybe this is easy for you. But especially if you haven't, these are things to do on your own. Okay? Giving you tools, right? It's the equipping of the saints. If you haven't or you thought about this, that's okay. So one thing that to do to practice, we said it's practice, we're going to go through 4 different songs. The first song is to where you kind of think about these things, get your thoughts all aligned. If there's things you need to confess or get right with the Lord or whatnot, or do those things in the first song. The second song is when you start to calm your mind, that you start to just listen. You try to settle your thoughts. If in this moment you feel the Lord is speaking to you something, I would encourage you to write it down. Now the next will be an instrumental song. Now we want to be really quiet and just there. That's where we really want to do the Here I Am, Lord. And the fourth is the same. And I don't want to say, oh, if you get a word, you can't speak it. Or, oh, if you get a song, you can't sing it. I feel like you should do what you feel led in the moment. But the real purpose, the bullseye, is his presence. And so we're not doing this to get a word. We're not doing this to get a healing or anything like that. We are, though those things might happen, and maybe he'll prompt you, we're doing this for his presence. Literally just saying, here I am. Regardless if I feel you show up in this intimate feeling way, regardless if I feel it, regardless if things change in my life, I'm literally just here for you. And if you choose to show up in a mighty, magnificent, powerful way that'll show up and get captured on camera and people will share it and go viral, it'll be crazy. Or if you choose to literally do nothing or make it, does that make sense? I'm not trying to say it's doing nothing, but if you don't feel it, it's okay. We're not doing this for us. We don't do this for us. And I think that's why it's so hard to get in this intimate presence, because a lot of times we don't feel anything from it. We don't get anything, or we don't get anything from it. It doesn't benefit us. My time, oh my gosh, the other day, we had an issue with the car. And so we had to take it to the mechanic. Guess what? The mechanic fixed it for free. But I was frustrated still because that was my time. Because my time is so valuable, especially now, especially with the working, especially with the kids. And so it was hard to enjoy a blessing because I valued my time so much. How much more would God, if we did that with God and his time? That's why, as much as you can be on time for church, be on time, especially for worship. That's not for you, that's for him. And I could go on and tirade about that, but please, I'm not trying to condemn anyone at all. I'm no condemnation. I'm just expressing in the way that I feel so strong. And hey, we were late this morning too. In the same way that I feel I was so hungry for my time, that even the blessings weren't comparable to the time. I want that to be how I feel about God. That the blessings don't stack to his presence, to sitting at. That's how I want to be. I'm not saying I am there. That's what I want. I want to understand this, that he went through all the things and processes from Genesis through Revelation so we could be present with him and he could be present with us, that I would stop that. I'm missing something major, and I could walk my entire Christian life possibly and not really sit at his feet in this way. But why? When it's available. Why? Especially in a few minutes where we're just going to have 20 or so minutes to just do it. To just try. And then take these and whatever one works for you and use them later. And then after that fourth song is done, it's going to be about 20, 25 minutes. It's going to be a little bit of time because we want to wait. If someone is in the presence, we don't want to stop it for them. If someone feels the presence, if someone is in that moment, we don't want to stop it for them. We just want to be and remember, we're just there for him. We give him time. We're just giving him time. We're giving him our time. In this busy, busy season of so many presents, we're giving him our presence. This presence is our present in a way. Not that we could ever give God anything. And once that fourth song is done, I invite Pastor Jim to come up here and wait in silence a little bit more. Because there's that silence part there's that silence part. I don't quite get it, but I know it's part of it, and I have seen me sit in silence. There's something powerful about worship, and we worship to a song that we know, and then we're kind of in adoration, listening to a song that we know is a worship song, maybe we don't know, and then we're trying to be open and listen and be present for Him in an instrumental song, and then we have a very soft song leading us slowly, quietly for several minutes, until it finally goes to silence, and then we just wait a little more, just being there, just with Him. And when Pastor Jim feels it's ready, then we'll come together if we felt we had something to write down and whatnot. So we want to talk about communion. This is His presence. What I want. I am desiring to feel what these other people feel when they talk about God in this intimate way. I want it. I hope you want it. I want that. So Lord, we just want you. We want your presence. We want your presence. And we are going to wait on you. We say we are here. Here I am, Lord. Here I am. It's not much. It's a few minutes on a Sunday morning. But Lord, we are just going to be here. It's a weird, maybe, feeling. It's odd. We don't quite understand it. But we're here. We're here. Here I am, Lord.